In this video, we will discuss about the constructor used in C++. A constructor is a special method that is automatically called when an object of a class is created. The constructor name should be same as the name of the class. If the name is different, then it will be considered as a function instead of a constructor. For constructors, we don't need to specify any return type. Whereas for functions, which we had discussed in separate video, we need to specify a return type or a void if no return type. It allows the class to initialize member variables and allocate memory to them. When a constructor is not specified in a class may be because we don't need to initialize any member variable. In such case, the compiler generates a default constructor and inserts it into the code. However, it does not initialize member variables and is just an empty constructor. The syntax for the constructor is: first, where we define the constructor inside the class as class name followed by parameters in parenthesis, followed by statements to be executed in curly braces. Secondly, where we define the constructor outside of the class as 2 times class name separated by scope resolution operator or 2 times colon between class name, followed by parameters in parenthesis, followed by statements to be executed in curly braces. Types of constructor. Constructors are mainly classified into 2 types. First is the default constructor. Default constructor don't have any arguments or parameters. It is invoked at the time of creating the object of the class. If the default constructor is not specified, then the program creates the default constructor without any statements inside it. Second is the parameterized constructor. A constructor which has 1 or more arguments or parameters is called parameterized constructor. It is used to provide different values to the objects present inside the constructor. In the program, a class myConstructor is created. In the class, a variable x is declared as int and made as a public variable. A constructor of the class myConstructor is created with 1 parameter as integer I. In the constructor, x is assigned the value of I. In the main function, 2 objects of class myConstructor are created as myConst and myConst1. myConst passes the value as 100 as a parameter and myConst1 passes the value as 200 as parameter to initialize the values of x in the myConstructor class. Cout statements are added to print the value of variable x, which is initialized in the class myConstructor, by using the object name followed by variable x. Once executed, we can see that it prints the value 100, which was passed through the first object, and then 200 using the second object of the class. In this way, we can set the value of a variable in constructor and can be used anywhere in the program. We can also declare the constructor inside the class, but the constructor definition can be done outside. We will make some changes to the same program. In the main class, the constructor is defined with 1 parameter without the definition. Outside the class, we need to specify the constructor name followed by scope resolution operator or 2 times colon, followed by the constructor name followed by the number of parameters. In the definition, X is assigned the value of variable I, which will be passed from the main program. Once executed, we can see the same results getting displayed. So these are the 2 ways in which we can declare and define the constructors. Constructor overloading. Like functions overloading, we can also overload a constructors in C++. 2 or more constructors can be created in the same class. Each constructor created should have a different definitions, like different number and types of parameters. The compiler automatically calls the constructor, which matches the argument passed while creating the object. For constructor overloading, we will modify the same program and add some more logic there. Integer x is assigned a default value of 1. Integer y is assigned a default value of 2. A new overloaded constructor is added with 2 input parameters as I and j. A new void function is added to print the values of variable x and y. The overloaded constructor definition is added by assigning x the value of I and y the value of j. In the main function, 2 objects of class myConstructor are created as myConst and myConst1. myConst passes the value as 100 as a parameter, whereas myConst1 passes the value as 11 and 22 as parameter to initialize the values of x and y. In the myConstructor class, the printval method is called by both the class objects. Once executed, the constructor object myConst with 1 parameter 100 is called. It sets the value of x as 100. Next, the constructor object myConst1 with 2 parameter 11 and 22 is called. It sets the value of x as 11 and y as 22. The constructor object myConst calls the printval method. It prints the value of x as 100 and y as 2 because myConst object has set just the value of x and not y. Because the value of y was not set, it printed the default value of y as 2. Next, the constructor object myConst1 calls the printval method. It prints the value of x as 11 and y as 22 because myConst object has set both the value of x and y. This is how we can use constructor overloading in C++.